for the world social media giant that in a way directs conversations across the world. Joyjeet Pal, Associate Professor at the Information School, University of Michigan, who's tracked social media for a long time, joins me. And Rahil Khurshid, co-founder Laminar Global and former head of News Twitter India, and an old colleague of mine, joins me. Appreciate both of you joining us. Professor Pal, to you first. What does it mean for a company like Twitter, social media giant, now to be privately held by someone like Elon Musk? Does it give him inordinate power? Could he use that power to influence the nature of Twitter in the future?
Yeah, so first of all, when the deal was first announced, Musk said that he would buy it before he came in with the full filing, I basically said this is a publicity stunt. He's not going to do it. Luckily, I didn't say I would eat my shoe if it turned out so. Otherwise, I'd be breaking beef rules somewhere. So I was surprised at first when he actually made the deal real. And then, of course, very soon after that, he tried to back out of it because the deal was basically a bad deal. Even if it looks like for him as an individual, it is something great to have the platform for himself as he fashions it. There are certain risks associated with it. But you know, when he tweeted the bird is free, immediately the European Union's internal market commissioner Thierry Breton said, well, the bird is free, but in Europe the bird will fly by our rules, so as to make a point here that it's not like everything can change and nations' rules can just be overrun. So it is true that now he has a lot more ability to do things his way, but that doesn't mean that he can run free with free speech, because historically, whenever that has happened, platforms have actually failed. If you look at 4chan, 8chan, the platforms which existed on free speech absolutism, eventually advertisers don't want to touch that kind of a platform.
So you're saying there are limits to the power that even an Elon Musk can wield, even if he converts it into a privately held firm. Rahil Khurshid, what is your biggest concern for an Elon Musk taking over Twitter? Is it something that can benefit Twitter in the long run, or do you believe it will change the medium forever? I heard Donald Trump sort of commending Elon Musk, and that left me very worried.
Rajdeep, obviously, like, I think going private has its advantages and its disadvantages, right? Like in that if he wanted to, he could incorporate product features, alter the platform in ways that eventually benefit users or advertisers, away from prying public eyes, away from stockholder pressure. But what his priorities are, we don't know that yet. In terms of what it means for the platform, I think it's safe to assume that a bunch of the staff, unfortunately, will have to find other jobs. What also is very clear that he might have bitten more than he can chew in context to the Twitter acquisition. He tried to get out of it, but the agreement that he had signed was very, very tight. What we're going to be able to find out very soon is whether the imperfect frameworks put together by Twitter over the course of the last 10 to 12 odd years of negotiating free speech and negotiating its own position relative to free speech in multiple geographies, under multiple legal regimes, what happens to that framework? And that's a crucial one in context of figuring out where Twitter goes from here. Because
do you see him controlling content? But do you see him being in a position to control content?
But he's in a position to do whatever he wants. It's his company now. So yes, if he wants to unban Donald Trump, he can. But he's been warned by Group M, for example, has very clearly stated that at least 10 of the brands that it buys ads for have told Group M to not buy ads if Trump is back on the platform, because no one wants, brand safety is a big concern in that no one wants their content to show up. And, I'm referencing Mr. Musk's open letter to advertisers that it's not going to be a free for all. So what does that mean? That means that he has to recoup his investment. He's borrowed a chunk of cash from equity investors and banks. And he has to pay that. So Twitter needs to keep making money from him. The other aspect to note is that this is likely going to create pressure on his other businesses. If China, for example, wants to, or if India wants some content removed, would it turn the screws on Tesla? 100%. So he's opened himself up to a vulnerability that is not going to stand him in the long run. But he is also assured.
Let me take what you've said as a concluding remark to Professor Pal. Will this therefore become a political, is this an acquisition that is also about a political power play in a way? That whoever controls Twitter can in a sense both be susceptible to government regulations in different parts of the world, but also have a greater influence over these governments. Do you see that happening now?
I don't think so. I think what is true is that politics has moved dramatically to Twitter, even if people say that Twitter is much smaller than, say, Facebook or other platforms. You see every politician everywhere in the world is on Twitter, and everything that they say now is mediated through social media. You're not, Rajdeep, you yourself are not getting politicians directly speaking to you anymore, because they're saying, go to my Twitter feed and see what you have to say over there.
So will Elon Musk, for example, mediate hate speech there? Will he, as the opposition in India is already suggesting that he will muzzle their voice? Do you fear? Is that true? Or do you think that that's an exaggeration?
It's hard to say, like the other speaker said, what he will decide, whether he will take it completely in a partisan form or not. It's definitely true that he has other products to sell, which limits how much he's willing to face up to governments. And so it's not like Jeff Bezos goes and buys Washington Post and then he's going to do whatever. It's not the same with Twitter because of the way politics is tied in with Twitter. So I don't see that happening per se. And all this talk about algorithms being made open, I mean, that's not going to change that much. It's not like your average person is going to look at the algorithm and say, oh, I understand this. Explainability is incredibly complex. So I don't see huge changes in that sense. But with him, he's so unpredictable.
But there will be much more noise. I can see already on day one, we've seen noise with the CEOs being sacked, the legal head being sacked. I wish we had more time on this. Maybe we need a further round table to look at social media. But Rahil, Khurshid, good to see you. And Professor Pal, thanks very much for joining me there.